The second hurdle is usually observation with questioning. So this is where the independent assessor will turn up at your place of work. We will have already arranged the date and the time so it suits, and everybody will be aware. We will obviously need to get security clearance in some parts of the scientific sector, and we'll arrange all of those things. So that will all be squared away before they arrive, and they will want to observe you for 3 hours. So that's one of the rules within the assessment plan. It probably feels like a long time. I'm not going to lie, it is a significant amount of time, but it gives them an opportunity to watch you carrying out your day-to-day tasks, observing you in several different key themes. And those key themes will be watching you working safely, following procedures or standard operating procedures or processes, complying with the regulations for your organization other than health and safety. That's there as well, but what other regs do you have to work to? And then also complying with your quality systems as well. So that might help you. I've got a bit more advice for that as well. If 3 hours, normally you'd be taking a break within a 3 hour kind of period, then you can still take a break. So we can break that down a little bit, take a bit of pressure off you. It can feel like a long time. For others, it seems to fly by, but for some, it can take quite a long time in terms of the perception. Once the questioning, or so the observation is complete, there are some follow-up questions. So that will last for 20 minutes maximum, and this allows really the independent assessor just to cover any gaps or anything that they weren't quite sure of. They might have seen, but just wanted to make sure that's what they were seeing. They can ask a question around it, and there might be some other themes that they won't see that they can just check that you have the knowledge and understanding of. Okay, so that will last for a 20 minutes maximum, but there will be a minimum of 5 questions that they will ask around that. Okay, so if you're worried about what you're going to do, think about what you normally do, what you are competent at doing. Do not do something that you are only just signed off to do. I think if you want to try and impress the independent assessor and show them something that's quite complicated but also new to you, that could lead to a bit of a disaster, and we don't want that. So there is a form that we will send to you, and you can map out the types of things, the type of operations that you're going to do. But as a big hint, really what it is the observation must contain you following and preparing for laboratory tests or experiments, following specific methodologies and using the equipment that is there to produce reliable, accurate data. So hopefully that sounds like the stuff that you would normally do. If you have any questions or concerns around it, talk to your training provider, who will talk to us, and we'll make sure that we give you all the best advice. But also, once we've agreed that you will be doing A and B or C when we come to see you, as long as you follow that, you can be pretty confident that it meets the criteria in that first left-hand side box. What we won't do is we won't come out to observe you for 3 hours if on that day you're going to be sat at a desk filing or data entry. That's clearly not going to cover the range of tasks that we would need to see. So that's what the forms are there for. Everything will be sorted out before the big day. The final hurdle is the structured interview, the full title of which is the structured interview underpinned by a portfolio of evidence. So during your time on program, with all those knowledge, skills and behavior criteria that you're working towards evidencing, you will be compiling a logbook, whether it's on an online system or it's on some other system, or maybe even hard copy. Maybe that still happens, but you will be creating this logbook. That portfolio of evidence will then be sent over to Marshall Assessment during Gateway. And what will happen is that your independent assessor will review the types of evidence that you are compiling. And what they will do from that is they'll get a feel for the type of testing that you do. They'll become familiar with the equipment that you're using and the processes that you're following. And they can use that then to ask you questions that are more contextualized for you. So, I can see from your portfolio you do A and B. Could you tell me more about why you do A, why you do B, or which is better? So you can see they can have that context in the questions, which is really, really good. The interview is one-to-one. You can see a little image there. It will just be you and the independent assessor. If it's not face-to-face, it will be done over a Teams platform and it will be recorded. So that is possible. We could do it remotely. You just need to arrange that, whatever your preference would be. That's not a problem. And so there will be a minimum of 20 questions asked. So you've got multiple different criteria, and we'll have a look at some of those. And you can prepare, because in the assessment plan, it will tell you exactly what the criteria are that we're looking to evidence. But I would say the evidence that we use isn't from the portfolio or the log, that logbook, that portfolio. It is from what you say on the day. Okay, it's important that the log and the portfolio, is as good as it can be. But the final evidence for your assessment is your responses to the questions in interview. Okay, just to be clear about that. Okay, so what can you have in your portfolio of evidence? And you can also bring that portfolio of evidence with you. We talked about the knowledge test being controlled conditions. This is controlled conditions, but you can bring supporting documents and materials with you. The controlled element is the time, the 75 minutes, and the fact that it's just the two of you that are in the room for the interview. So you can bring certificates, qualifications, things that you've done within the workplace, photographs of instruments or standard operating procedures, anything that you've done with your training provider that might assist you, any notes or anything effectively. There's not much that's out of bounds here. If it's contained within your portfolio, you can bring it, but even if it's not, and it's something that you've created during your time on program, bring it with you. Now, the screen is actually quite busy there. Imagine how busy it would be if you tried to bring everything with you. So my advice is to look at the assessment criteria within the assessment plan. There is a really, really handy Marshall assessment guide, which I'm going to show you in a second. So use that as well. It will tell you what the assessment criteria are, and it also gives you some examples of the things that we're looking for. So again, just like with the knowledge test, make sure you prepare. And the knowledge test, I said, was pass or fail. The observation is also pass or fail, but it's this structured interview that you could pass, fail, or achieve a distinction grade for. So it has those higher grading evidence criteria associated with it as well. So you get the feel for it. If you have too many documents with you to support you, you'll be wasting too much time trying to find the thing that you want to find to show to the assessor. Really, the evidence is there to jog your memory. The interview isn't a memory test. It's around what you know and the skills that you have and how you perform your job, and do you know why you do it and why is that important. So if you have documents to support you for that will just give you something to talk around to help you answer the questions, really that's what it's about. Okay, so I told you there was a document that we created for you. Here it is. The examples are in blue. These are actually for the pass and distinction criteria from the assessment plan. The evidence is just an example of what you might have within your portfolio, and it will lead our assessor in the right direction when they're reviewing it. So the pass criteria could be, gives an example of when they've last ordered stocks of laboratory materials. Distinction can explain the impact of stock control, making sure that you've got what you need when you need it. So that might be in a written document. You might have an example and a bit of context written, and that might be found within your portfolio. Is it found within the portfolio? Whereabouts might that be? Is it a Word document? Is it page 1 of that Word document? Is it a work product? Maybe what's it called? Where can we find it? Where should we go to it? The next pass criteria here is outlines and apply simple statistical techniques for data presentation. To elevate that to a distinction level evidence, the criteria states that you need to be able to evaluate and interpret the results of statistical techniques. So why is that particular statistical technique the good technique to use? And once you've used it, what does the data tell you? What's the trend? What is it showing? What was the value of that analytical or statistical technique? So that's the kind of thing. So overall, we don't need everything that you've created, but it does say in the assessment plan as a guide, there should be around 15 to 25 pieces of evidence in total. And clearly the same piece of evidence might tick off multiple pass or distinction criteria, because it might be a 4-page document and it covers a load of different things. And actually, the best portfolios we have in there have got annotated work product, they've got witness testimony evidence, they've got assignments around your understanding of things like regulations and regulators and the environment, and they've got all sorts of different things in there. You can have recordings, voice recordings, as long as they're short, no more than 5 minutes, and that they are time stamped against the pass or distinction criteria. That way our assessors can come in, have a good look around your portfolios and really prepare well to ask you questions. And they're asking questions about your own work. So you've got to see that as a benefit. They're going to be saying, okay, tell me more about something like that. Can you explain? Can you evaluate? And it's documents you've got to hand as well if you need them. Okay, so that portfolio must be real work completed for your employer by the apprentice. Anything from the employer should be witness testimony, I said, so observations of performance. Those are the kinds of things that we like. We don't like opinion. It needs to be something which is tangible, that we can hold on to. Somebody's seen something and said this, and not somebody saying, I believe so and so is good at this. We want proof, we want that documentation. Okay, and then finally, the evidence should be valid, attributed to you as the individual. So there's a statement at the bottom that the evidence is your evidence and the examples are relating to you as an individual. So we've got that in our forms. So you would sign to make sure that it is your work effectively that we are looking through. Okay, so from our guidance document, I mentioned before that we've produced this guidance document and it actually has a little bit of information about what you could do, some examples perhaps around some of the different areas for the structured interview. So one of the areas for the structured interview is around continuous improvement. This first box where it says S18, participate, that is taken directly from the assessment plan, as is the pass descriptor, and in the middle, the distinction descriptor, taken directly from the assessment plan, which you can go and have a look at on IFATE's website. What we have done is we have then added to that to give you an example. So where the pass descriptor states demonstrates participation in schemes which improve workplace systems and processes, we would expect the apprentice to provide an example of contributing to and participating in continuous performance improvement of workplace systems and processes. Schemes could be organisation, so efficiency type things. It could be working towards expansion of accreditation or maintaining that. It could be auditing, proficiency testing for a new process, a new procedure. For distinction descriptor, the assessment plan states that you need to critically analyse schemes which improve workplace systems and processes. Okay, so it's important that you focus on critically analyse. So you need to critically analyse various schemes which improve workplace systems, processes, considering the pros and cons of each. So some could be very good but very expensive. Others are time consuming but really benefit the organisation. So that you'll need to be able to do that in order to get that grade, that distinction level evidence. So the apprentice must demonstrate an overall understanding of the advantages of the systems and processes in terms of continuous improvement and the benefits to the workplace. Employee, that could include you, it could include colleagues, customers, patients. You list them, you think about the work you're doing impacting other people. That's a really good, well-rounded response. So finally, and kind of towards the end now, the structured interview preparation, as it is with the others, is key. You can't expect to do well if you don't put the effort in and prepare. Just because you've done really well on program doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do as well during the endpoint assessment if you haven't prepared. So be familiar with the evidence. The criteria is there waiting for you in the assessment plan. Make sure you focus on it. Make sure you feel comfortable with it. Make sure that your log is well mapped out, that you've got really good evidence and examples in there to discuss with your assessor. The more questions about what you do every day, the easier, clearly, it's going to be for you to recall examples and to discuss it in detail. Make sure that you've planned to have, if not the entire portfolio with you, but elements of it to support you. There can be things that you could talk for hours about, but we don't want you to talk that long. But you don't need any hints or prompts or support with you. There may be other areas that just naturally you need that little kickstart to be able to have a conversation, or it's just easier to talk around a live example that you can hold up and point to and say, look what I created, look what I did, look how I do it. Particularly for things like statistics and things like that, it's much easier to point to a document and have it there in front of you to talk about. If you do all that, there really won't be any surprises on the day for you. Because you have everything that you need. But if you have any questions, then obviously you need to, as you prepare, pass those over to your training provider who can pass them on to us, and we can come and we can talk to you or talk to them and make sure that you're completely happy. No surprises. Finally, then, grading. So I mentioned before, the knowledge test is pass or fail. The observation, you can think of it as you're competent or not competent. So it's kind of pass or fail as that. There is no other descriptor. But for the structured interview, that's the only one of the three hurdles which, if you pass your knowledge test, if you pass the observation, and then get distinction in your structured interview, your overarching certificate for your apprenticeship will say that you passed with distinction. If you pass all three, then you will have a certificate that says that you've passed your apprenticeship. If you fail any one of the three, then you will have to resit that hurdle. You don't have to resit all three just because you failed one of the three hurdles. So you only resit the one that you failed, or two if that's the case. So that's, there you go. That's the grading. That's what you can expect to see. Okay. So that's everything that I had. That should have given you a good overview. If you have any other questions, please speak to your training provider who can then get in touch with us at Marshall Assessment, and the very best of luck.